"Excuse me, ma'am, just the leftovers." "What did you just say?" The woman's voice cut through the music like a shard of glass, cold, elegant, and faintly curious. Every conversation in the restaurant faltered. Forks froze midair, laughter died, and $100 bottle of wine hovered, untasted. The man standing at the entrance looked as if he'd wandered in from another world. Rain dripped from his sleeves, pooling around his worn boots. He was black, tall, lean, the kind of tired that came from more than one night without sleep. "I said," he repeated softly, "just the leftovers. I don't need money, just something to eat." The waiter nearest to him stiffened, glancing toward the manager. "Sir, I'm afraid—" "Let him answer me," the woman said again. She sat alone near the window, framed by the glow of the city outside. Silver hair, tailored gray suit, every inch of her polished, deliberate Victoria Sterling, CEO of Sterling Dynamics. The kind of woman who didn't ask twice. Her voice, cool and precise, carried the authority of someone used to being obeyed. "Come here," she said. The waiter hesitated. "Miss Sterling, perhaps we should—" "Now," she said. Her gaze never left Jerome. He took a slow step forward, then another, his reflection trembling across the marble floor. "What's your name?" she asked when he stopped a few feet away. "Jerome," he said quietly. "Jerome Carter. And you're hungry?" "Yes, ma'am." "Sit," she said simply, gesturing to the empty chair across from her. "Eat properly." "I shouldn't." "You should," she interrupted. "No one should beg standing up." He blinked, uncertain whether it was kindness or command. But something in her tone, half challenge, half mercy, made refusal impossible. Saturday, the waiter's face tightened. Victoria didn't seem to notice. "Bring him a plate," she said, "something warm." The waiter opened his mouth to protest but thought better of it. When he was gone, the silence returned. Victoria studied him openly, like she was trying to solve an equation that didn't quite add up. "You've been outside long?" she asked. "Long enough to stop keeping count." "And before that?" "Electrical work," he said. "Union job, decent pay. Then the plant closed, my sister got sick, and the bills took everything else." She nodded slowly. "So you fix things?" "When I can." "And when you can't?" "I try anyway." Her lips curved slightly, not a smile, more a test of interest. The world could use more of that. The food arrived. Risotto, bread still steaming, vegetables bright against the plate. Jerome hesitated, but she nodded once. "Eat." He picked up the fork. He ate carefully, deliberately, aware of how quiet the room had become. Conversations had resumed, but only barely. He could feel the glances, the invisible line drawn around him, the judgment that had followed him everywhere since the first time he'd slept under a bridge. "You eat like a man who hasn't forgotten manners," she said. "You eat like a woman who doesn't forget power," he replied. She lifted an eyebrow. "Is that supposed to impress me?" "No," he said. "Just an observation." "You're observant. That used to be my job. And now? Now I'm a ghost people pretend not to see." Something flickered in her expression, brief and unreadable. "You don't seem invisible to me," she said. "Maybe that's because you're not pretending." Outside, rain blurred the glass, turning the city into streaks of silver. She looked out at it for a long moment. "Where do you stay?" "Under I-5, he said. "Concrete roof, free rent. I've got a corner with a lamp and a blanket. Sometimes that's enough." "Show me." "What?" "Show me where you live." "You don't want to do that." "Yes, I do." "Why?" "Because I'm tired of people telling me what I don't want." He stared at her, half expecting sarcasm, but her tone didn't waver. "You're serious. Always," she said. Minutes later, the rain swallowed the noise of downtown as her black sedan followed him across the city. Skyscrapers gave way to empty lots, then to the underbelly of the highway, where the air smelled of smoke, damp cardboard, and rust. Jerome led her beneath the overpass to a small patch of concrete where a few tents leaned against the wall. He lifted the flap of his tarp shelter. "Welcome to my world," he said softly. Victoria stepped closer, her heels clicking against the wet pavement. She glanced around not with disgust, but with something like curiosity. "You keep it clean." "I fix things," he said. "It's the only control I've got left." Nearby, a woman grumbled at a dead lamp. Jerome crouched, pulled a screwdriver from his coat pocket, twisted 2 wires, and the bulb flickered back to life. The woman smiled faintly. "He's our electrician," she said. "Best in town if you don't mind the smell of rain." Victoria watched, silent. "You could do that every day for a living," she said. "If someone hired me." "What if I did?" He looked up sharply. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," she said. "You work, you don't complain, you don't steal, you're hired." He shook his head. "You don't mean that." "I never say what I don't mean." She pulled a card from her coat pocket and handed it to him. "Sterling Dynamics. Be there tomorrow at 8. Maintenance division. Ask for me. And if I don't show, then you'll stay here," she said simply, "and I'll be wrong about you." Rain dripped from the edge of his hood as he stared at the card, the gold letters catching the dim light. "You really don't do small gestures, do you?" "No," she said, turning toward the car. "Small gestures change nothing." The sedan door closed with a quiet thud, and she was gone. Jerome stood there, the card warm in his palm. The rain above softened, humming gently against the concrete. He looked around at the flickering lights, at the people dozing under plastic sheets, and whispered, "Maybe tonight's the night something starts to change." The highway rumbled overhead, steady and endless, but for the first time in months, he didn't feel trapped beneath it. Morning light broke through a thin veil of Seattle fog, turning the streets to silver. Jerome stood in front of the Sterling Dynamics Tower, a monolith of glass that reached into the clouds, its reflection swallowing the city skyline. He had shaved with cold water behind the shelter, ironed his shirt with a warm pipe, and borrowed a tie from a man who said it was for luck. He wasn't sure what luck looked like anymore, but he hoped it had his name on it. The revolving doors hissed open as he stepped inside. Marble floors stretched wide and cold beneath his boots. A receptionist with immaculate hair looked up, scanning him from collar to cuff. "Can I help you, sir?" Her smile was professional, but her eyes said she'd already decided he didn't belong. "Jerome Carter," he said, holding up the card. "Maintenance department. Miss Sterling asked for me." The woman's hand froze halfway to the phone. "Miss Sterling herself?" "Yes, ma'am." The elevator dinged before she could reply. "She's expecting him," said a voice behind her. A tall man in a Navy maintenance jumpsuit leaned in the doorway. "You're with me," he said to Jerome. "Bennett," he added, extending a hand. "Chief engineer. Welcome to the circus." They rode in silence. The elevator hummed softly. Jerome stared at his reflection in the mirrored walls, clean shirt, old coat, eyes that still carried nights under concrete. "Don't worry," Bennett said. "Everyone feels out of place their first day. Some never stop." "And you?" "I made peace with it," Bennett said, half smiling. "Being useful helps." The doors opened onto the sublevel, a maze of steel pipes, humming generators, and the scent of warm dust. "Your kingdom," Bennett said. "We keep this place running. No one upstairs ever thanks us for it, but they'd scream if the lights went out." He handed Jerome a badge and a small toolkit. "Your trial starts now. Miss Sterling likes results." "She told me." "She tells everyone," Bennett said. Hours passed in quiet rhythm. Jerome fixed a faulty fuse, replaced a blown light panel, and cleaned up wiring that had been left half done. His hands remembered the language of circuits and balance. For the first time in months, he wasn't begging, he was building. Around noon, Bennett led him upstairs to the cafeteria. The room was sleek and modern steel tables, glass walls, the buzz of conversation. As soon as Jerome stepped in, the noise dipped. People noticed. They always did. Two younger employees whispered near the salad bar. "That's him, right? The guy she picked up from the street? Must be some kind of PR stunt. He looks, well, not dangerous, just out of place." Jerome ignored them. He'd heard worse. Bennett nudged him toward a table near the window. "Eat. Don't mind the noise." "I'm fine," Jerome said, opening the sandwich he'd brought from the shelter. "You sure? Company pays for lunch." "It's not about money," he said. "It's about peace." Bennett nodded. "Fair enough." Across the room, Victoria entered, her presence shifting the air. The whispers grew quieter, then louder again once she passed. She crossed to the counter, spoke to the manager, and glanced briefly toward Jerome. Their eyes met for a second, hers unreadable, his steady. Then she was gone, leaving a trail of speculation behind. "You really know her?" Bennett asked. "Only as much as she lets me." "That's more than most," Bennett said. "She doesn't usually notice anyone outside the boardroom." The afternoon brought new tasks, a power fluctuation in the research wing, a jammed ventilation unit. By evening, his shirt was damp with sweat, but he felt something close to satisfaction. As he packed up, a voice startled him. "You work quietly." Victoria stood in the doorway, arms crossed, still in her suit from that morning. "Is that a problem?" he asked. "No, it's refreshing." She stepped inside, glancing around the humming equipment. "They say you fixed 3 systems today." "They were broken," he said simply. "It's what I do." "You don't seem surprised to see me." "I figured you'd check. Most people would thank me for the opportunity." "Most people aren't me," he said, meeting her gaze. "I don't thank people for believing what's already true." Her lips twitched, almost a smile. "Confidence looks good on you. It's survival." "Then survive here," she said. "Prove I was right." She turned to leave, then paused. "There's a board meeting tomorrow. My ex-husband Richard Hale will be there. He's not fond of my decisions, especially the ones that make headlines." "Like me," Jerome said. "Like you," she agreed. "He'll test both of us." "Then we'll pass," he said quietly. She studied him for a long moment. "We'll see." The next morning came gray and cold. Jerome arrived early, sweeping the lower floors before most employees clocked in. He liked the solitude, the hum of machines, the rhythm of work. At 9 sharp, the power flickered across the east wing. He traced the fault to a damaged cable near the server room and fixed it before the backup system even activated. Bennett found him an hour later, shaking his head. "You've been here 2 days, and you've already fixed what others ignored for months. Guess I needed the work more." "You might just outlast us all," Bennett said. That afternoon, while he checked a junction box, 2 men from security approached. "You, the new guy?" "Depends who's asking. Word is, the CEO has a new charity case." "That you?" "Word travels fast," Jerome said. One of them smirked. "We just want to make sure you're not planning to rewire your way into payroll." Jerome wiped his hands on a rag. "I already am payroll." "Watch the tone, man." "I am," Jerome said, stepping back. "You should too. This place runs on electricity, and it's less dangerous than your assumptions." Bennett arrived before it escalated. "Everything all right here?" "Fine," Jerome said. The guards left. Bennett sighed. "You'll have to get used to it." "To what?" "People deciding who you are before you open your mouth. Been used to that my whole life." "Then don't let them be right." Late that evening, Jerome finished his rounds and rode the elevator alone. When the doors opened on the top floor, Victoria stood by the window, city lights casting gold across her face. "You're still here," she said. "So are you," he replied. "I thought CEOs went home before midnight. Only the ones who sleep well. Do you?" "Not lately." She turned toward him. "The press found out about you. They're running a piece tomorrow. Let me guess. Billionaire CEO rescues poor black man?" "Close," she said, her voice sharp with disgust. "The Sterling experiment." He exhaled slowly. "You can't control what people write." "No," she said, "but I can control what's true." "And what's that?" "That you're not an experiment." "Then don't treat me like one." The words came out harder than he intended, but he didn't take them back. She nodded once. "Fair enough. Don't act like one either." Their eyes met, steel against fire. Then her expression softened. "Good night, Mr. Carter." "Good night, Miss Sterling." As he left, the elevator doors slid shut between them. In the reflection, he saw his own face, not the man under the bridge, not yet the man she believed he could be, but someone suspended between both worlds, trying to decide which one would survive the night. Outside, the rain started again, soft and relentless. Washing the glass tower clean, the morning sun struggled to break through the gray haze, throwing soft light over the glass walls of Sterling Dynamics. Jerome arrived before dawn, as always. The city was still waking, its rhythm muted by drizzle. Inside the maintenance corridor, he moved like a shadow, quiet, precise, invisible but essential. Every bolt tightened, every circuit checked, every hum of the generator steady beneath his fingertips. It had been 3 weeks since the night in the restaurant, and his world had changed more in those 21 days than in the last 2 years combined. Yet the stares hadn't stopped. People still whispered when he passed, their voices thin but sharp. The charity case, the CEO's pet project, the lucky one. He'd learned to let it wash over him. What mattered was that the work was honest, and the machines didn't lie. They either ran or they didn't. And when they didn't, he fixed them. At 9, Victoria descended into the maintenance level, something no executive ever did. Her heels echoed against the metal grating, out of place among the smell of oil and heat. "You don't have to come down here," Jerome said without looking up. "You don't have to remind me of that," she replied. "But I wanted to see for myself." "See what?" "If you're settling in or waiting to leave." He turned, wiping his hands. "I haven't decided yet." "Then decide," she said. "The board is circling me like wolves. They think bringing you in was a stunt. I need to know you're more than a headline." "And what do you need to believe that?" "Time," she said. "And proof. Time I can give you. Proof you'll have to define that." She almost smiled. "I'm working on it." They rode the elevator together, the silence between them comfortable now, like the quiet between two people who'd stopped pretending. The doors opened to the 38th floor, where the boardroom waited a wall of windows overlooking the city and a long table lined with polished faces. Richard Hale, Victoria's ex-husband, sat near the head of it, his smile sharp as glass. "Well," he said, his voice smooth and cutting, "so this is the man everyone's talking about." Jerome stood beside her, tall, calm, his shirt pressed and badge visible. "Jerome Carter," she introduced, "our new maintenance engineer, and the reason the power outage last week didn't cost us $5 million. "Ah," Richard said, leaning back. "A miracle worker from under the bridge." The laughter that followed was practiced, polite, poisonous. Jerome didn't flinch. "Electricity doesn't care where you sleep," he said. "It either flows or it doesn't." Richard's smirk faltered for just a moment before returning, tighter. "Clever. But tell me, Miss Sterling, do you make a habit of hiring street philosophers now?" "Only the ones who solve problems your team couldn't," she replied evenly. The room went still. Richard's eyes flashed, but he smiled again, slow and deliberate. "You've always had a taste for underdogs, Victoria. I hope this one bites." "Only if provoked," Jerome said softly. The meeting dragged on numbers, forecasts, decisions, but the undercurrent was clear. Power wasn't just measured in profit here. It was survival disguised as civility. When it ended, Victoria walked out first, her pace brisk. Jerome followed a few steps behind. In the hallway, she exhaled. "You didn't have to defend me." "I wasn't defending you," he said. "I was defending truth. That's a dangerous habit here. So is silence." She stopped, turning toward him. "You don't talk like someone who used to sleep on concrete. And you don't talk like someone who's forgotten what it means to be lonely," he said quietly. For a second, her composure cracked. She looked at him, not the worker, not the project, but the man. Then her phone buzzed, and the moment broke. "Dinner," she said suddenly. "Tonight. My driver will take you." "Dinner? You fixed the lights. You survived the board. You earned a meal. Don't argue." "Wouldn't dream of it." That evening, he traded his work clothes for a clean shirt and stood waiting by the car. The driver didn't speak during the ride, but the silence was heavy with curiosity. When they reached her penthouse overlooking Elliott Bay, the city stretched beneath them like a sea of light. Victoria opened the door herself, barefoot, wearing soft gray silk instead of armor. "You clean up well," she said. "You too," he said, though she hardly needed the compliment. They ate by the window, simple food, grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, a bottle of wine breathing between them. Conversation came easily at first. She asked about his sister. He asked about her early days at the company, before the title and the power. She spoke of ambition and sacrifice, of boardroom betrayals and sleepless nights. He listened, not out of politeness, but because her words felt human beneath all the polish. After a while, her tone softened. "You know what the hardest part of success is?" she asked. "Keeping your soul. Keeping your reflection," she said. "Everyone keeps trying to change how I see myself. You start believing their version of you if you're not careful. Maybe that's why you noticed me," he said quietly. "I reminded you what you used to be." Her eyes met his, steady and unguarded. "And what's that?" "Someone who still feels." The air between them thickened, charged not with power, but something older, raw. She looked away first, exhaling. "You shouldn't say things like that." "Why not?" "Because they sound true." Outside, thunder rolled over the bay, distant and low. She poured more wine, her hands steady but her voice softer. You realize if the press ever sees us like this, they'll crucify me. Then let them, he said. They already built the cross. You talk like a man who's lived through fire. I did, he said. It didn't kill me, just burned off what wasn't real. She smiled faintly. Then maybe that's why I trust you. The moment lingered a glance too long, a silence too heavy, and then the storm outside broke, rain drumming against the glass like a heartbeat. They stood together at the window, side by side, watching the city disappear behind the rain. You should go before it gets worse, she said softly. Or I'll have to offer you shelter again. Would that be so bad? He asked. She looked at him then, and for once, there was no distance in her eyes. No, she said, but it would be complicated. He smiled. Everything worth anything is. The thunder rolled again, closer this time. She turned away first. Tomorrow, I'm presenting a new project, one that'll shake up half this company. I need you in the control room. If anything goes wrong, fix it before they can blame me. Always, he said. As he left, she stood by the glass, watching the rain trace lines down the city's reflection. When the door closed behind him, she let herself whisper the truth she wouldn't admit out loud. You already did fix something, she said to the empty room. You fixed me. Outside, Jerome walked into the storm, the wind cutting cold through his coat, but his steps were sure. For the first time in years, he wasn't walking away from anything. He was walking toward something real, even if the world wasn't ready for it. The morning came with a hard gray light and the kind of chill that made the glass of Sterling Dynamics shimmer like cold steel. Jerome arrived before the others, his boots echoing on the marble floor. He liked being early. It gave him time to breathe before the noise of the world caught up. The launch was today, the one Victoria had spoken of over dinner, Project AEGIS. It was supposed to redefine the company, maybe even redeem it, but she'd warned him that not everyone wanted her to succeed. As he checked the main power relays, he could feel the tension in the air, the hum of pressure behind the quiet. Technicians hustled past, reporters hovered near the glass stage, and high-level board members floated through like sharks in tailored suits. Victoria appeared just after 7, calm as if the whole event were a rehearsal for something only she understood. She wore black again, crisp lines and composure sharp enough to cut through rumor. When she reached Jerome, she stopped. Everything stable? For now, he said. I ran a full diagnostic. If something goes wrong, it'll be human, not mechanical. Her eyes met his. Then we'll deal with the humans. Before he could respond, Richard Hale walked in, the ex-husband, the rival, the ghost that never stopped haunting her successes. Victoria, he said with that smooth, poisonous smile. Still chasing miracles? Still trying to sell your soul and call it business? She replied. Touché, he murmured, glancing toward Jerome. And this must be your personal redemption project. Tell me, Carter, how does it feel to be Exhibit A in a billionaire's guilt campaign? Jerome didn't flinch. Feels like work, he said. That's more than I can say for some of the suits in this room. A few gasps broke out. Richard's smirk faltered, but Victoria didn't intervene. She just said, Gentlemen, the cameras are rolling soon. Let's not give them a better story than the one we planned. At 10 sharp, the lights dimmed and the presentation began. The stage glowed with blue light, and Victoria stepped forward, her voice firm, her presence commanding. Project AEGIS represents a future built not on greed, but on balance, she said. Clean energy that gives power without taking dignity. Applause rippled through the room, but Jerome noticed something off. The hum of the generator was wrong. Too deep, too hot. He glanced at the monitor beside the control panel. A voltage spike. Someone had bypassed the safety threshold. He whispered into his earpiece. Bennett, check the backup grid. Something's pulling current it shouldn't. Already on it, Bennett said, tension in his voice. But the system's locked. Someone encrypted the failsafe remotely. Who has that clearance? Only the board or Miss Sterling. Jerome's stomach tightened. Then it's not her. On stage, Victoria continued speaking, unaware of the danger creeping behind her. When technology serves compassion, she said, we begin to restore what the world has lost trust. The word echoed, and then the lights flickered. A ripple of murmurs swept through the crowd. Jerome moved fast, crossing the floor toward the access hatch beneath the display. Sir, a guard barked. You can't be here. If I don't touch this now, you won't have a building left to guard, Jerome said, dropping to his knees. Sparks spat out as he pulled open the casing. The hum deepened into a growl. Victoria turned and saw him. "Jerome?" she said quietly, almost lost beneath the noise. "Shut it down," he yelled. "Now." But the override wasn't responding. "Bennett," he barked into his mic. "Manual cutoff. I can't reach it. It's overridden." "Then kill the main relay. That'll crash the demo feed. Do it!" Jerome tore at the wiring, pain lancing through his burned hand from before. A flash lit the room. The sound died. For 3 long seconds, everything was still: the lights, the hum, even the breath of the crowd. Then emergency power flickered back, soft and steady. The prototype dimmed safely, the danger gone. Applause began hesitantly, confusion mixing with relief. Victoria stepped forward, her pulse visible in her throat, and faced the crowd. "A minor technical disruption," she said smoothly, "handled by our lead engineer." She looked at Jerome as she said it. Proof that reliability begins with people. Cameras flashed. Richard's face hardened. "You just got lucky," he hissed as she passed him. "You've built your whole life on luck," she said. "How's that working for you?" After the crowd dispersed, security found evidence of sabotage. The tamper logs were wiped, but Bennett retrieved a partial fragment access code registered under Hale Innovations, Richard's subsidiary. When Victoria confronted him, he shrugged. "Do you have proof?" "Not yet," she said. "But I have motive, history, and a camera system you forgot we upgraded." "You won't win," he said quietly. "You put too much faith in people like him." He nodded toward Jerome across the room. "People like me," Jerome said, stepping in. "You mean people you can't control?" Richard sneered. "You think she cares about you? You're a symbol, nothing more. The charity headline that makes her palatable to investors." Jerome held his gaze. "Then maybe you should worry why she'd rather stand next to a man like me than crawl back to one like you." Richard's jaw tightened. He turned away without answering. Victoria exhaled slowly. "He'll strike again," Jerome said. "He already did," she replied. "Now it's my turn." That evening, as Rain returned to the city, she called Jerome to her office. The skyline beyond her window was half hidden by fog, the lights of the harbor glinting like distant fire. "You saved more than my project today," she said. "You saved my credibility." "You did that yourself," he said. "I just kept the building from burning down." "And now what?" she asked quietly. "What happens to you after this?" "I fix whatever breaks next," he said. "That's all I know." She looked at him for a long time. "What if what's breaking isn't a machine?" "Then I'll still try," he said. She smiled faintly, then turned to the window. "Do you know what I saw in you that first night? Pity? No, defiance, the kind that doesn't die even when everything else does." He hesitated, then said, "You're not what people think you are, either." "No," she said softly. "But maybe that's why we see each other so clearly." Outside, thunder rolled across the sound. Inside, the distance between them was shrinking, one conversation, one danger, one act of faith at a time. Neither said what they were both beginning to understand, but it lived in the quiet between their words, in the way she didn't turn away, and in the way he didn't leave. For the first time, survival didn't feel like the end of his story. It felt like the beginning of theirs. The rain had stopped by dawn, but the city still glistened with its memory. Sterling Dynamics towered above it all, its mirrored walls catching the gray light like armor. Jerome arrived early again, the hum of the building familiar now, almost comforting. The headlines were already everywhere: Black engineer saves Sterling launch, some praising, others questioning, all loud. He had expected gratitude, not suspicion. But when he entered the lobby, he felt it instantly. The silence that followed him, the glances that didn't bother to hide. One woman whispered, "That's him, the one she hired." Another murmured, "He's not even certified to be here." Their words clung like static, sharp and invisible. Upstairs, the mood wasn't much better. The board had called an emergency meeting, and Victoria hadn't slept. She stood at the window of her office, arms crossed, phone pressed to her ear. "No, I don't care about optics," she said flatly. "Find me the person who tampered with that system or find another job." She ended the call just as Jerome entered. "You've seen the news," she said without looking up. "Yeah," he said. "People always prefer a story to the truth." They're saying you staged the whole thing, that I planted you as a prop to gain sympathy. And you believe them? If I did, you wouldn't be standing here." He studied her face, tired but fierce. "You look like you've been fighting ghosts all night." "Not ghosts," she said. "Men in suits who think charity is more dangerous than sabotage." "Then maybe you should let me handle it. You can't fight perception, Jerome." "No," he said, "but I can prove something real." She turned finally, curious. "How?" "Whoever rigged that system used clearance from inside the company. I can trace it from the maintenance logs if you give me access." "You'd be walking into a trap," she warned. "They already think you're the problem. Then I've got nothing left to lose." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Fine. But if they come for you, they come for me too." "Wouldn't be the first time," he said. By noon, he was deep in the guts of the building again, servers humming, cables snaking through walls. He moved quietly, tracing patterns, following the trail of tampered code. Bennett joined him, frowning at the terminal. "You sure about this? If it catches us, they'll throw us out." "Then make sure they don't," Jerome said, typing fast. The data lines scrolled, revealing layers of encryption. Someone had been clever, too clever, but Jerome had spent years fixing the invisible. He recognized the signature buried in the script, an algorithm used in Hale Innovations' internal servers. "Got you," he whispered. "Richard," Bennett leaned closer. "You can prove it?" "Not yet, but I can corner him." He copied the fragment onto a flash drive and slid it into his pocket. As they turned to leave, a voice echoed from behind. "Going somewhere, gentlemen?" Richard Hale stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 security officers. His smile was thin. "Trespassing in restricted systems? That's a bad look for a man already accused of sabotage." Jerome straightened. "You framed me once. Won't happen again." "Framed?" Richard laughed. "You think the world believes you? You're a convenient symbol. Carter, a story to make her look merciful. You were never meant to last here." "You're scared," Jerome said quietly. "Because you know I can prove you did it." Richard's expression flickered, just for a heartbeat, then hardened. "Security," he said. "Escort them both out." But before the guards moved, a new voice sliced through the tension. "Try it," Victoria said from behind him. She stepped forward, eyes cold as steel. "I'd love to see you explain why you're standing outside a restricted zone during an internal investigation." The guards hesitated. "Miss Sterling," he said. "I don't care what he said," she snapped. "You'll stand down, or I'll make sure your next assignment is guarding a parking lot." They backed off immediately. Richard smirked. "Still protecting your projects, I see." "Still mistaking decency for weakness," she said. "Get out." He brushed past her, whispering, "You can't protect him forever." "Watch me," she replied. When he was gone, Jerome exhaled. "That was close." "No," she said. "That was war." She followed him into the control room. "You found proof?" He handed her the flash drive. "Partial code trail his company's encryption embedded in the sabotage file. It's enough to force a full audit." "Good," she said. "Because the board's meeting in an hour, and Richard's already called for your suspension." "Then I'd better be there." "You sure?" she asked softly. "Once you stand in that room, you're not invisible anymore. I stopped being invisible the day I walked into your restaurant." She smiled faintly. "Then let's finish what we started." The boardroom was crowded when they entered, executives in dark suits, tension thick as smoke. Richard was already standing at the head of the table, mid-sentence. "This company's reputation has been compromised. We can't afford liabilities." "You mean competition?" Victoria said, walking in with Jerome beside her. The room went silent. "Mr. Carter," Richard said mockingly, "how nice of you to join us. Ready to confess?" "Depends," Jerome said. "You want the truth or another headline?" He pulled the flash drive from his pocket and plugged it into the display system. The screen flickered, then filled with lines of code, timestamps, access points, encryption markers. Bennett's voice came from the back. "That's internal Hale Innovations code, no doubt." Richard's composure cracked. "You think this proves anything?" "It proves you used your access to sabotage my launch," Victoria said. "And it proves that you underestimated the man you tried to destroy." Murmurs filled the room. A board member spoke quietly. "We'll need to verify, but if this checks out—" "It will," Victoria said. Richard's jaw clenched. "You'll regret this." "No," she said. "You will." Security entered moments later, this time for him. When he was escorted out, the room exhaled as if it had been holding its breath for hours. Afterward, Victoria walked Jerome to her office. The tension had drained, replaced by something gentler, fragile. "You realize you just dismantled a corporate empire," she said. "No," he said. "I just fixed what was broken." She laughed quietly. "You and your repairs. It's all I know," he said. "Maybe," she said, "but you're fixing me too, and I'm not sure how to feel about that." He looked at her, and something unspoken passed between them, something that didn't need words or titles. Outside, the clouds began to break, a sliver of sunlight cutting through the gray. "You think they'll ever see us for what we really are?" he asked. "Maybe not," she said, "but we will." For the first time since either of them could remember, the air in the tower felt clean, not from technology, but from truth. The next few days felt like standing in the eye of a storm. The board suspended all outside communication, while legal teams built their case against Richard Hale, and though Victoria had technically won, victory felt strangely hollow. The press circled the company like vultures, sniffing for scandal, and Jerome's name was in every headline. Some called him a hero. Others painted him as a convenient distraction, the man who'd played savior to earn his CEO's favor. He ignored the noise, but it followed him into every corridor. The stares had changed. They weren't just judgment now, but curiosity, envy, something colder. Still, he worked. He always worked. That Monday, he was in the generator wing recalibrating the damaged system when Bennett appeared, shaking his head. "You've seen this?" he asked, holding up a tablet. The headline read, "Sterling Street Miracle. Did the CEO fall for her own charity case?" Jerome stared at it, his stomach tightening. "They're running that?" "Everywhere. Half the city thinks you two are well, you know." "They always need a story," Jerome said, going back to his tools. "Truth's too quiet for them." "You should talk to her," Bennett said softly, "before the board twists it into something worse." Jerome nodded but didn't answer. By noon, the gossip had reached the top floor. Victoria faced the board again, her patience thin. "Our focus should be on restoring investor confidence, not dissecting my personal life," she said coldly. A woman across the table smiled. "Perception is reality, Victoria. People see intimacy where there's proximity. Then perhaps they should try seeing results," she said. "Jerome saved this company. If that makes people uncomfortable, that says more about them than me." The woman leaned back. "Or maybe it says you've lost perspective." Victoria's expression didn't change. "Perspective built this company," she said, "and it's what's keeping it alive." After the meeting, she went straight to the maintenance floor. Jerome was bent over a control board, sleeves rolled, grease on his wrist. She stood watching him for a moment before speaking. "You've seen it, haven't you? The articles?" "Yeah. I'm sorry," she said quietly. "You didn't ask for this." "Neither did you," he said, tightening a bolt. "But I've been called worse than charity before." "That doesn't make it right." "No," he said, "but it makes it familiar." She stepped closer. "They'll keep talking." "Let them," he said. "They can't change what's real." He straightened, meeting her gaze. "You're not the one I'm worried about." "Then who?" "You. They'll turn on you if this doesn't die down." "If they do," she said, "I'll survive. I always do. You shouldn't have to fight this alone. Neither should you." For a moment, the distance between them disappeared. Then her phone rang, breaking the stillness. "It's the media liaison," she said. "They want a joint interview, to humanize the story." Jerome gave a dry laugh. "Because nothing's more human than exploitation." "I'll cancel it," she said. "No," he replied. "Do it. Let them see us. Let them choke on their assumptions." She studied him, weighing the risk. "You're sure?" "Completely." The next day, they sat under studio lights, microphones clipped to their collars, the skyline glowing behind the glass. The interviewer smiled too wide. "So, Miss Sterling," she began, "tell us, what was it about Mr. Carter that stood out to you?" Victoria didn't blink. "He told the truth when everyone else lied. And Mr. Carter," the interviewer said smoothly, "what was it like, being given a chance by someone like her?" "It wasn't charity," he said. "It was accountability." She saw what others ignored. "And now?" "Now," he said, "we're building something better together." The interviewer's smile faltered slightly. "Together?" "Professionally," Victoria interjected. He's been instrumental to Sterling's recovery. The interview wrapped quickly, but the internet wasn't so disciplined. Within hours, clips went viral, freeze frames of glances, of words taken out of context. Together, trust. She saw him. The public built a love story out of silence. Inside the company, tension grew thicker. Some of the staff avoided Jerome altogether. Others watched him with pity disguised as politeness. That night, as he left the building, he found a note taped to his locker. "Go back where you came from." He read it, folded it once, and dropped it into the trash. When he stepped outside, Victoria was waiting by her car. "I saw the footage," she said. "They're calling it a romance. People like fairy tales more than facts. You don't look surprised." "Because it was always coming," he said. "A black man gets near a woman with power, and suddenly it's seduction, not respect." "I'm sorry," she said again. "Don't be. Just don't apologize for seeing me as more than a story." "I don't," she said. "That's why this hurts." She looked at him, the city lights reflected in her eyes. "Do you ever wonder how much of this is our fault?" "Fault? Maybe we blurred the line. Or maybe we crossed it the moment we stopped pretending not to care." She didn't speak for a long time. Then she said softly, "Come with me." They drove in silence until the city gave way to water. The bay stretched wide and black, the sound of waves muffled beneath the wind. She parked near the pier and got out, leaning against the railing. "When I started this company," she said, "I thought I could build something so strong no one could touch me again. But the higher I went, the more invisible everyone else became. Then you walked in, and suddenly I could see again." He stood beside her, close enough to feel the chill off the water. "You didn't need saving, Victoria." "Maybe not," she said. "But I needed reminding." She turned to him. "You make me want to be someone better." "You already are. Not to them. Forget them." He reached out, slow and uncertain, until his hand found hers. She didn't pull away. For the first time, she didn't look like a CEO. She looked like someone trying to remember what it meant to be human. The wind carried the scent of salt and rain, the water breaking softly against the dock. "Tomorrow," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "they'll come after us harder. The investors, the media, the board. They'll say we crossed a line." "We did," he said. "But maybe that's the point. And if it costs us everything, then it was still worth something." She smiled, tired and real. "You're impossible. So are you." They stood there until the first light crept over the bay, the city beginning to stir behind them. Whatever waited on the other side of dawn didn't matter yet. For now, there was only the sound of the sea, the warmth of her hand in his, and the quiet, dangerous certainty that the line between survival and love had finally disappeared. The morning after, the pier felt quieter than any Jerome could remember. The city was awake, but he wasn't part of its rhythm anymore. Every step he took toward Sterling Dynamics felt heavier, every look from the security guards colder. News had broken overnight photos of him and Victoria by the water, their hands intertwined, faces turned toward each other under the foggy lights. The headlines didn't care about truth. They had already written their story: billionaire CEO and homeless lover, scandal under the Seattle sky. He didn't need to open his phone to know what people were saying. The whispers started before he reached the elevator. By the time the doors opened on the 38th floor, the whole company knew. Victoria was already in her office, blinds half drawn, a stack of newspapers spread across her desk. She didn't look up when he entered. "They published everything," she said. "Someone sold the photos." "It doesn't matter," Jerome said. "It matters," she replied, voice brittle. "The board's meeting in 2 hours. They're calling it misconduct, conflict of interest, reputational risk, you name it." "So what are they going to do?" "They'll demand my resignation," she said. "And yours." He exhaled, slow and steady. "Then I'll go first." "No," she said sharply. "If one of us walks out, it won't be you." "Victoria, don't." She cut him off, softer now. "You've fought too hard to get here. I won't let them take that from you." He crossed to her desk. "You think this is about me keeping a job?" "It's about survival," she said. "It always is." He met her gaze, steady, unflinching. "Then we survived together." Her eyes flickered, emotion she couldn't quite hide. "You don't know how much that means." "I think I do," he said. The board meeting felt like a trial. The long conference table gleamed like a blade, every face around it cold, polished, waiting to strike. The chairwoman spoke first. "Miss Sterling, these photographs have caused irreparable damage to this company's reputation. Investors are panicking. The press is calling for your removal." Victoria's tone was calm, but her hands were clenched beneath the table. "This company isn't built on gossip. It's built on integrity, innovation, and results." "Integrity." Richard's voice came from the back of the room. He had returned not invited, but somehow always there. "You talk about integrity while sleeping with your employee?" The room erupted in murmurs. Victoria turned to face him. "You're not even supposed to be here." "I'm a shareholder," he said. "I have every right to be, and I think the board deserves to know what kind of leader you've become." Jerome stood. "That's enough," Richard smirked. "Oh, the Savior speaks. Tell me, Carter, how long did it take before you realized the fastest way off the street was through her bed?" The words hit like a slap, but Jerome didn't flinch. "I didn't earn my place there," he said evenly. "I earned it here in this building, fixing the systems you broke." "Gentlemen," the chairwoman warned, but Richard wasn't done. "He's an opportunist," Richard said. "You think he loves you, Victoria? He loves the power that comes with your name." Victoria rose then, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "If you ever speak about him like that again, I'll make sure you never step foot in another boardroom." Richard laughed, but it was thin, hollow. "You've already lost, darling. The court of public opinion doesn't forgive women who step out of line." "Then I'll stop asking for its forgiveness," she said. The chairwoman cleared her throat. "Miss Sterling, Mr. Carter, the board has decided, effective immediately, you are both suspended pending further investigation. You will vacate the premises today." Victoria exhaled, shoulders squaring. "Understood." Jerome looked at her, ready to argue, but she shook her head once. "Not here. Not now." They left the room in silence, the hallway echoing with every step. When the elevator doors closed, Victoria finally spoke. "They wanted this," she said quietly. "They've been waiting for me to slip, to give them a reason." "You didn't slip," Jerome said. "You cared. That's not weakness. In their world, it is. Then maybe their world needs breaking." She looked at him then, something raw in her eyes. "You really believe that?" "I believe in you," he said simply. She looked away, but not fast enough to hide the tremor in her jaw. They exited into the lobby. Cameras flashed immediately, questions shouted like bullets. "Miss Sterling, did you abuse your position?" "Mr. Carter, did you seduce the CEO for advancement?" "Are you in love?" Security pushed them through the noise, but not before Victoria turned back to the reporters, her voice sharp and clear. "You want a statement?" she said. "Fine. A woman and a man can respect each other without it being a scandal. And if that's too complicated for your headlines, that's your failure, not mine." The crowd went silent for a moment, stunned. Then the shouting started again, louder, hungrier. They reached the car. Inside, the chaos faded to the sound of rain starting again against the glass. "You shouldn't have said that," Jerome murmured. "I had to," she said. "I won't let them rewrite what this is." "And what is it?" he asked quietly. She turned toward him, eyes glistening with exhaustion and something deeper. "Something real," she said. He wanted to believe that, but reality was already pressing back. They spent the afternoon in silence at her apartment overlooking the bay, both knowing the phone would ring eventually. It did at sunset. She answered, listened, and hung up slowly. "They're making it permanent," she said. "Termination, effective immediately." "You?" he asked. "Both of us." He let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "So that's it?" "No," she said, straightening. "That's the start." "Of what?" "Something that doesn't need their permission." She walked to the window, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. "We built their empire," she said. "Now we build our own." "You think we can?" "I know we can," she said, "because we're the only ones who ever cared why it mattered." He joined her at the window. Outside, thunder rolled again over the sound. Inside, something shifted between them, not a spark this time, but the slow, steady flame of two people who had nothing left to lose except each other. She turned toward him, voice barely above a whisper. "You still think it was worth it?" He reached for her hand. "It's the only thing that ever was." The days after their termination blurred together, a strange silence replacing the constant hum of the office they'd once ruled. The city kept moving, indifferent as always, but for Victoria and Jerome, everything had shifted. Their names were still in the headlines. CEO falls from grace. Street engineer disappears into the shadows. To the world, it was over. To them, it was the beginning of something dangerous and alive. Victoria's penthouse had become both refuge and prison. She spent hours on her laptop, writing plans, drafting proposals, sending quiet emails to people who still believed in her vision. Jerome worked beside her at the kitchen table, blueprinting small prototypes, sketching out systems that could be built with almost nothing. Between them lay stacks of documents and cups of cold coffee, the foundation of an idea that neither of them dared to call a company yet. One evening, as the rain whispered against the windows, he looked up from a schematic. "You ever miss it?" he asked. "The boardroom, the power." She closed her laptop, thoughtful. "Not the power, the purpose. I built that company to make something good, but somewhere along the way I started protecting the structure instead of the idea. That's what happens when the structure's built on other people's money," he said. "They start owning your purpose too." "Not this time," she said. "This time, it's ours." He smiled. "Then what do we call it?" She hesitated, then said softly, "Second chance." He raised an eyebrow. "You mean for people like me?" "For people like us," she corrected. The name stuck. They began working in secret, renting a small workshop in the industrial district, a place that smelled of dust, metal, and possibility. Jerome repaired equipment to fund their materials. Victoria sold her jewelry, her art, even her car. "A CEO pawning diamonds," Jerome said one afternoon, shaking his head. "You sure you're ready for this life?" "I traded glass towers for real work," she said. "Feels like a promotion." They laughed, and for a moment, the weight lifted. But the world hadn't forgotten them. One morning, as they opened the workshop, two men in dark suits waited by the door. "Miss Sterling," one said, flashing a badge. "Federal Securities Division. We need to ask you a few questions about the Hale investigation." Jerome stepped forward. "You can ask me instead. We'll speak to both of you," the agent said. Inside, the conversation was tense. Richard Hale had filed a countersuit, claiming defamation and corporate theft. "He's accusing you," the agent said, "of stealing proprietary data during your final days at Sterling Dynamics." "That's ridiculous," Victoria said. "Those files were mine. I created them." "He says you used them to start a rival operation." Jerome's jaw tightened. "We're not rivals. We're survivors." "Be that as it may," the agent said, "you'll both need to appear for questioning next week." When they left, Victoria sat down hard, the weight of it catching up to her. "He's not done," she whispered. "He's going to bury us." "Then we'll dig back out," Jerome said. "We've been in worse places." She looked at him, eyes shining with equal parts, fear and faith. "You believe that?" "I have to." The week crawled forward. They worked through the fear, building quietly, testing small prototypes of their clean energy converter, the same design Sterling had stolen from her. On the eve of their hearing, Jerome found her on the balcony, staring at the lights across the water. "You're thinking about giving up," he said. "I'm thinking about the cost," she replied. "If we lose, they'll take everything. My name, your freedom. I've already lived without both," he said. "But I've never lived without hope. Don't take that from me now." She turned to him. "You talk like a man who still believes in miracles." "No," he said softly. "I believe in work, and I believe in you." The next morning, they stood before the federal panel. Richard Hale was there, his suit immaculate, his smirk unshakable. He painted them as liars, thieves, lovers turned conspirators. "Miss Sterling manipulated this man," he said. "Used him to sabotage my company and steal proprietary data." When it was Jerome's turn to speak, he stood tall, voice steady. "You call me manipulated," he said, "but I call it trusted. You call her reckless. I call her human. You can twist the story however you want, but the truth's simple: she gave me a chance when no one else would, and I gave her back what this city forgot: honesty." The room was silent for a beat. Even the judge looked moved. Victoria followed, her tone calm but sharp. "Everything I took from Sterling Dynamics was mine. My research, my work, my ideas. If Mr. Hale believes ownership lies with whoever has the power to exploit, then he's not describing theft. He's describing capitalism at its worst." Murmurs rippled through the audience. The judge called for recess. Outside, in the corridor, she turned to him. You spoke like a man who didn't care about losing. Because I don't, he said. Not if it means you win. That night, as they waited for the verdict, they sat side by side on a park bench, the city glowing faintly in the distance. She leaned her head against his shoulder. If this goes south, she said, promise me you'll walk away. You really don't know me yet, he said. I walk toward fires, not from them. Then maybe that's why I found you. The verdict came the next morning. The court dismissed Hale's claims for lack of evidence. Sterling Dynamics was ordered to pay restitution for wrongful termination and the attempted smear campaign. They had won not just freedom, but something deeper. Outside the courthouse, the air felt cleaner, the noise of cameras distant. Reporters shouted questions, but Victoria ignored them. She turned to Jerome. What now? We build, he said simply. For real this time. Second chance? Second chance, he said. She smiled, the first true one in weeks. Then let's start today. As they walked away from the courthouse, the sunlight broke through the clouds, spilling across the wet pavement. For the first time since the night she'd offered him a meal, their steps felt even. Two people scarred by the same world, walking not out of debt or survival, but toward something both terrifying and beautiful, the life they had chosen to create together. The first weeks of Second Chance felt like rebirth, disguised as chaos. The workshop buzzed with noise and purpose, saws whining, metal clanging, solder burning under Jerome's steady hands. Victoria worked beside him, hair tied back, a streak of graphite across her wrist instead of diamond. They lived on instant noodles and late-night coffee, their savings shrinking, their dreams expanding. For the first time in years, she didn't wake to spreadsheets and lawyers but to blueprints and laughter. You realize, Jerome said one morning, tightening a bolt on the prototype, we're 2 lawsuits away from homelessness again. You realize, she said without looking up, you've been homeless and survived. I can learn. You say that like it's a skill. It is, she said, smiling faintly. Survival's always a skill. They tested their device, the compact energy converter she had once envisioned for Sterling Dynamics, but never finished. It hummed quietly on the workbench, light pulsing like a heartbeat. That sound, she said, is what hope would sound like if it had an engine. Then let's see if it runs, he said, flipping the main switch. The converter powered on, clean and silent. The meter held steady. No surge, no flicker. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she exhaled, laughing softly. You did it. We did it. She looked at him, eyes bright. You know what this means? That we're either geniuses or out of excuses. It means, she said, we have something real, something that can't be bought or stolen. They started small, supplying clean power to shelters and small community centers. The first installation went live in the same underpass where Jerome had once slept. When the lights flickered on under the concrete ceiling, the crowd of residents cheered. A woman hugged Jerome and said, "You fixed the dark." He didn't know what to say. Victoria stood a few feet away, her eyes glassy. "This," she whispered, "is what it was always supposed to be." The press found them again, of course, but this time the tone was different. Disgraced CEO builds hope from ruin. Homeless engineer lights up Seattle's forgotten streets. The same people who had mocked them now called them visionaries. But success brought shadows. Corporate offers arrived, some disguised as partnerships, others as veiled threats. Sterling Dynamics offered to buy them outright, $20 million for full ownership. "You know that's bait," Jerome said, reading the email. "They want the patent, not the purpose." "I know," she said, "but part of me still wants to walk into their boardroom just once to show them what they threw away." "Then walk in," he said, "but make sure you walk out with your name intact." They declined the offer publicly. Within a week, someone broke into their workshop. The prototype was gone, the files wiped. Jerome found the door forced open, his tools scattered. "They didn't take money," he said, "just the design." "It's Hale," she said. "He's still pulling strings." "Then we build another." "We can't," she said. "Without funding, without protection. We start again," he said firmly. "That's what second chance means." "How can you stay so calm?" "Because panic never fixed anything. And what if it's gone for good? Then we'll rebuild it better." She stared at him, frustration melting into something like awe. "You really don't quit, do you? Not on things that matter. Or people," she said quietly. "They rebuilt from memory, nights stretching into mornings, hands blistered, eyes burning. He taught her how to solder, how to listen to the rhythm of a machine's hum, how to find the fault by instinct. She taught him how to pitch, how to see value in vision, how to face the world without apology. Somewhere in the middle of all that, they stopped pretending their bond was only professional. It wasn't sudden, it was inevitable. One night, while they waited for a test run, she fell asleep on the workbench beside him. He draped his jacket over her shoulders and sat in silence, watching the light from the converter flicker across her face. For the first time, he wasn't thinking about loss. He was thinking about belonging. When she woke, their eyes met, and she said softly, "You're staring, trying to figure out how someone like you ended up here. Maybe the same way someone like you did. By accident? By fate." The next morning, they received an invitation to a clean energy summit in San Francisco, an opportunity to showcase their invention to investors and policymakers. "It's too soon," Jerome said. "We're not ready. We're alive," she said. "That's enough." The event was held in a glass atrium overlooking the bay. They stood together on stage, their device glowing behind them. She spoke first, steady and poised, telling the story of second chance without embellishment. Then Jerome stepped forward. "This machine doesn't run on power," he said. "It runs on belief, the belief that no one's too far gone to start again." The applause was thunderous. Reporters crowded them afterward, but amid the noise, one older man stepped forward. "I was at Sterling," he said. "I voted against you. I was wrong. If you're still looking for partners, I'd like to help." It was validation, not revenge, and it meant more. By the time they returned to Seattle, their project had funding, protection, and purpose again. Late that night, they sat outside the workshop, watching the city lights shimmer. "You ever think about how far we've come?" she asked. "All the time," he said. "But I think about where we're going more." "And where's that?" "Anywhere the lights don't reach yet." She smiled. "That sounds like a mission." "It is," he said, "and you're stuck with me now. You say that like it's a threat." "No," he said quietly, "like it's a promise." The city hummed around them, alive, imperfect, endless. Their hands found each other without thinking, the same way broken circuits find current. Somewhere beneath them, under the same bridge that once sheltered him, the lights they'd installed still burned soft, steady, and unafraid of the dark. Autumn crept over Seattle with a quiet chill that seemed to settle inside the bones. For months, Second Chance had grown from a dream into a movement. The converter had spread beyond shelters and small neighborhoods. It powered clinics, community kitchens, and schools in forgotten corners of the city. Jerome became the face of the project, though he never asked for it. Victoria stayed behind the curtain, managing investors, fending off legal noise, and making sure no one could touch what they had built. But peace, like everything they had ever held, came at a price. One Thursday morning, Victoria received a letter anonymous, typed, short, "You think you've escaped. You haven't." She read it twice, folded it neatly, and slipped it into her drawer. That evening, she told Jerome while they were packing up the workshop. "He's still out there," she said quietly. "Richard." Jerome didn't look surprised. "Bullies don't quit when they lose. They just change their weapons." "Then what do? We keep going. You can't fight ghosts." "He's not a ghost," she said. "He's a man who still owns half the city." "Then maybe it's time the city learned who he really is." Her eyes met his, steady and fierce. "You're talking about exposure." "Truth," he said. "Same thing." Over the next weeks, they gathered evidence, emails, recordings, financial trails from the stolen patents. Victoria knew the risks. Hale still had friends in high places. But for once, she wasn't protecting herself. She was protecting what they had built, what he had given her reason to believe in. Late one night, while combing through encrypted files, she paused. "You ever wonder," she said, "if we're just repeating the cycle, building something beautiful, waiting for someone to break it?" "Maybe," he said, "but this time, we're building it out of truth. That's harder to break." The following week, they scheduled a public presentation at City Hall, a showcase of their next expansion phase. It was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it became a battlefield. The morning of the event, Jerome noticed a black sedan idling across from the workshop. "We've got company," he said. Victoria looked through the blinds, her stomach tightening. "Ignore it. We've got work to do." The crowd at City Hall was larger than expected. Reporters, investors, community leaders. The mayor herself was there to commend their work. Jerome spoke first, his voice calm but firm. "Second Chance isn't just a company," he said. "It's proof that progress can come from places people ignore." The applause was warm, genuine. Then Victoria took the stage. She began speaking about transparency, about justice, about the need for ethics in innovation, and then the lights flickered. The screen behind her went black. A voice boomed from the sound system, distorted, cruelly familiar. "You can dress up a thief in philanthropy, but a thief's still a thief." Gasps filled the hall. On the dark screen, a video began playing, doctored footage, spliced from years-old security feeds at Sterling Dynamics, edited to show Victoria taking files and transferring them to her laptop. "Property theft," the voice continued. "Fraud, deception." Richard Hale stepped from the side of the stage, smiling as if he'd rehearsed it all. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "I warned you. This woman didn't save a company, she stole one." Security rushed forward. Chaos erupted. Jerome pushed through the crowd toward the control booth, trying to shut the feed down, but the damage was done. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Victoria stood frozen for a moment before she found her voice. "Those videos are fake," she said. "This is an attack." "Of course you'd say that," Hale sneered. "You always did love rewriting history." "History rewrote itself when I walked away from you," she said coldly. "You don't get to control it anymore," Jerome returned, panting. "I stopped the feed," he said quietly. "But they already have the footage." "Then we fight it," she said. That night, every news outlet replayed the video. Public opinion turned fast again. The fall of the Second Chance Queen. Did redemption have a price tag? Sponsors withdrew, investors hesitated. Within 48 hours, their funding froze. In the workshop, the machines sat silent. Victoria stared at the dark screens, her reflection fractured in the glass. "He's going to kill it," she said. "Everything we've built." Jerome walked over, gently took her hand. "He can't kill what's real." "You really believe that? I've seen you rebuild from nothing. You'll do it again." "We'll do it again," she corrected softly. He smiled. "That's my girl." She froze slightly at the words. It wasn't the phrase itself, it was the way he said it, with warmth and belonging, not ownership. "You know," she said, "you're the first man to call me that without meaning to control me. That's because I know you'd never let me." "Damn right," she said, and for the first time in days, she laughed. They spent the next few nights preparing a counterattack. Jerome contacted a friend from his old engineering network, a hacker who owed him a favor. Together, they traced the origin of the forged footage, uncovering the IP address. It led straight to Hale's office. "Gotcha," Jerome whispered. Victoria leaned over his shoulder, eyes narrowing. "We leak this. We expose everything, his manipulation, his lies, his extortion. You sure you're ready for that kind of war?" "I've been fighting it my whole life," she said. The next morning, they published the evidence anonymously through several independent media outlets. The story exploded. Within hours, new headlines replaced the old, "Evidence suggests Hale fabricated footage." Whistleblowers confirm corporate sabotage. The tide turned faster than either of them expected. Sterling Dynamics stock plummeted. The board announced an emergency meeting to suspend Hale indefinitely pending investigation. In the quiet that followed, Victoria and Jerome stood outside the workshop as dawn crept across the sky. "It's over," she said, almost not believing it. "For now," he said. "But there's always another storm coming." "Then we face it," she said, turning toward him. "Together." He looked at her, the morning light soft on her face, and for once there was no fear, no doubt, just the quiet, certain truth of what they had become. "You know," he said, "we started this because you offered me leftovers." She smiled faintly. "And look where that got us." "Yeah," he said, "right where we belong." She leaned into him then, not out of desperation, but peace. The city stretched before them, broken, beautiful, alive. Whatever came next, they would face it side by side, the way light faces darkness, not by avoiding it, but by burning through it. Winter arrived in Seattle like an old wound reopening. The air carried salt and rain, the streets gleamed under dim streetlights, and the city that had once turned its back on them now whispered their names again, but this time with reverence. After Hale's fall, Second Chance had become a symbol. Donations poured in from small businesses, churches, and community groups. The company's name appeared on banners at charity drives and school walls. Yet for Victoria and Jerome, fame brought exhaustion more than joy. They'd spent months fighting for the truth, and now that they had it, they were too tired to celebrate. One night, as the wind battered against the workshop windows, Victoria sat on the floor surrounded by scattered documents, her laptop dim beside her. Jerome entered quietly, 2 mugs of coffee in hand. "You've been staring at those numbers for an hour," he said. "I'm trying to make them balance," she murmured. "They won't," he said, sitting down beside her. "They never do, not perfectly." "I used to think success meant control," she said. "Now it feels more like surrender." "Maybe that's the lesson," he said. "You can't build something real if you're still fighting ghosts." She smiled faintly. "You always sound like a preacher when you're tired. That's because coffee's my gospel." They laughed softly, the kind of laughter that comes when 2 people know silence too well. But the peace didn't last. The next morning, Bennett, Jerome's old co-worker, burst into the workshop. "You need to see this," he said, holding out a tablet. A local news site blared the headline, "City Audit Targets Second Chance Over Financial Irregularities." Victoria took a breath. "They're coming again." "It's not Hale this time," Bennett said. "It's the city. They're questioning your permits, your accounting, everything." "They want to break us," Jerome said. "Someone always does." "No," Victoria said. "Not this time. We do it by the book. Full transparency. Let them look." Over the following days, investigators swarmed their records. Every purchase, every payment was dissected. Some staff panicked. Donors pulled back. Through it all, Jerome stayed calm, working late nights to keep the systems running. One evening, Victoria found him asleep at his desk, grease on his cheek, his hand still gripping a wrench. She touched his shoulder gently. He stirred, blinking up at her. "You should be in bed," she said. "You first." "I can't sleep," she admitted. "Every time I close my eyes, I see it all falling apart again." "Then keep them open," he said softly. "We'll hold it together." The audit dragged on for weeks. They discovered a series of forged invoices, money funneled through a third-party contractor they'd never hired. Someone inside had set them up. When Victoria confronted the staff, fear rippled through the room. Finally, a young accountant, trembling, confessed. "They paid me," he said. "Someone from Sterling's old network. They said it was just paperwork." "How much?" Jerome asked quietly. "20,000. "And it almost cost hundreds of lives," Victoria said, voice low but steady. She didn't yell, she didn't cry. She just turned away, the weight of betrayal settling like frost. That night, she stood by the bay, staring at the skyline that once defined her ambition. Jerome joined her, his hands in his jacket pockets. "You could walk away," he said. "No one would blame you." "You would," she said. "You'd never forgive me for quitting." "Maybe not," he admitted, "but I'd understand." She turned toward him, her breath visible in the cold. "You ever wonder why I fought so hard to save you that night?" "Because you're stubborn," he said. "Because I saw myself in you," she whispered. "You were standing in the dark, and I was pretending I wasn't. But we were both lost." He stepped closer. "Not anymore." "No," she said softly. "Not anymore." The audit cleared them 2 weeks later. The city's report declared Second Chance a model of civic transparency. The headlines flipped again, painting them as survivors, not sinners. But this time, neither of them sought cameras or applause. Instead, they went back to work, expanding into nearby towns, training volunteers, turning their story into opportunity for others. One afternoon, they visited a new installation site, a community center rebuilt after a storm. Children ran through the halls, their laughter echoing against fresh paint. An older woman approached Victoria, holding her hand gently. "You're the one who started this?" she asked. "We both did," Victoria said, nodding toward Jerome. "My husband used to say the world changes when someone stops waiting for permission," the woman said. "You didn't wait." "No," Victoria said quietly. "We didn't." Later, as they drove back toward the city, the rain began to fall again, soft, persistent, the kind of rain that didn't drown but renewed. Jerome glanced at her, his voice almost lost beneath the hum of the engine. "You ever think about what's next?" For us or for the company? Both. She smiled, a weary but hopeful smile. Maybe the same thing. Maybe they're one now. He nodded. I think that's what scares people, the idea that power can come from compassion. And love, she added. He looked at her then, really looked, the road forgotten for a moment. You just say that out loud? Maybe I did, she said, laughing softly. You planning to take it back? No, he said. Not ever. The rain grew heavier, but neither cared. The city loomed ahead, glowing through the mist like something reborn. For the first time, they weren't chasing redemption, they were living it. They had become the story they once fought to prove true, that dignity doesn't come from wealth or titles, but from courage, forgiveness, and the choice to keep building even when the world keeps tearing down. When they reached the bridge where it had all begun, Jerome slowed the car. The lights they'd installed years ago still glowed beneath the overpass. You want to stop? He asked. Always, she said. They got out, the air cold and sharp, their breath mixing in the dark. She looked at the faint reflection of the lights in the puddles below. You know, she said, every time I see this, I think of how you looked that night. Hungry, proud, unbroken. And you, he said, looked untouchable. But you were breaking too. Maybe we were supposed to find each other then, she said. Maybe we still are. Maybe, he said, taking her hand. But this time, it's not about saving each other. It's about building something that lasts. She nodded, eyes glistening in the dim light. Then let's make it last. The rain fell harder, washing the city clean, as if time itself was starting over. For once, they didn't need promises or proof. They had each other, and that was enough. Spring came quietly, as if the city itself had been waiting for permission to breathe again. The headlines had faded, the noise had died down, and for the first time in years, Victoria and Jerome lived without waiting for the next attack. Second Chance had become a steady pulse in the heart of Seattle, a network of solar grids, microgenerators, and community partnerships that kept the lights on in places where the world had long stopped looking. Their names no longer drew scandal or pity, just quiet respect. The story had moved on, but they hadn't. Some nights, when the rain softened and the bay lights shimmered like melted glass, Victoria would find Jerome outside on the balcony, staring toward the horizon as if listening for something. One evening she joined him, wrapping her coat tighter. You still don't sleep much, she said. Used to noise, he replied. The silence gets too loud. She smiled faintly. That's the kind of thing poets say. I'm a mechanic, he said. I just fix what's broken. And what about me? She asked softly. You were never broken, he said. You just forgot you weren't. They stood there for a while, the hum of the city rising beneath them. It was peaceful, maybe too peaceful. The next morning, an email arrived from a research institute in Washington, D.C. They'd been nominated for a national award for innovation in sustainable energy. Victoria read it twice before showing him. They want us to fly out next week, she said. Jerome frowned. You sure you want to walk back into that world again? It's not about them, she said. It's about what we built, what we proved. Then let's go show them. The ceremony was held in a grand hall filled with suits, cameras, and polite applause. The air smelled of power and politics. On stage, Victoria spoke briefly about equality, about faith, about the invisible hands that build real change. When the applause faded, Jerome leaned close and whispered, You realize they're all clapping for a woman who gave everything up just to start again. No, she whispered back. They're clapping for a man who reminded her why. After the event, as they stepped outside into the crisp night air, reporters swarmed. Miss Sterling, will you return to corporate leadership? Mr. Carter, are you two officially together? Victoria met their questions with a calm smile. We're not here to make statements, she said. We're here to make change. They escaped into the car, the noise fading behind them. For a long time, neither spoke. Then Jerome said quietly, You handled that like a pro. You mean like a CEO? Like someone who stopped needing to prove anything. She turned toward him. You ever think we'll get used to peace? Not sure I want to, he said. It's the fight that made us. And what happens when the fight's over? Then we start living. Weeks passed, and Second Chance expanded again, this time to the East Coast. Jerome spent his days training new engineers. Victoria handled policy, grants, and endless meetings. But under the surface, a quiet distance had begun to grow. They were always together, yet rarely alone. One night, after a long day, Jerome found her asleep at her desk, surrounded by papers. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. She stirred. "You still think this is worth it?" she murmured. "Every day," he said, "even when it costs everything. Especially then." She smiled in her sleep. "You always know what to say." He didn't reply. He just watched her breathe, the rhythm steady, the light from the desk lamp painting her face in gold. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor, Richard Hale's lawyer. He came bearing documents, his tone uncharacteristically polite. "Mr. Hale passed away last week," he said. "He left a note addressed to both of you." Victoria hesitated, then opened the envelope. Inside was a short letter, typed and signed. "You were right. I built an empire on fear. You built one on grace. I lost because I never believed in people the way you did. Use what's left of me for something good." Attached was a deed, a transfer of Hale's private foundation fund, worth millions, to Second Chance. Jerome looked at her. "You believe this?" "I believe guilt can do strange things to a man before he dies," she said. "You want to take it?" he asked. She looked at the paper, then at him. "It's blood money," she said, "but maybe it can wash something clean." "Then we'll use it right," he said. "Not to build higher, but to build wider." They accepted the fund, turning it into a national grant for underprivileged inventors. The first award went to a young Latina engineer designing portable water purifiers for disaster zones. When she stepped on stage to thank them, her voice trembled. "People like me don't usually get chances like this," she said. Victoria's eyes met Jerome's across the crowd. "That's the point," she whispered. In the months that followed, Second Chance grew beyond them. It became a movement, run by others, reaching farther than either could have dreamed. The work that had once consumed their lives now lived on its own, stronger, freer. And so, one evening, standing by the same bridge where it all began, Victoria said, "You ever think about walking away?" Jerome looked at her, surprised. "From this?" "From the noise," she said. "From the endless rebuilding." "And do what?" "Live," she said simply. "Just live." He smiled slowly. "Where?" "Anywhere with you," she said. The sun was setting, painting the water in copper and rose. Below them, the lights they'd installed still burned small, steady, unbreakable. "You realize," he said, "the story started because you gave a man a meal." "No," she said softly. "It started because he looked me in the eye and saw something human." He reached for her hand, rough meeting delicate, both weathered by the same storm. "You ever think we were meant to find each other?" "I think we were meant to remind each other," she said. "That kindness isn't weakness, it's how you win." The wind rose, carrying the scent of rain and the faint hum of the city's heartbeat. She leaned her head against his shoulder, and for a long while, neither spoke. They didn't need to. The past was behind them, the future unwritten, but in that moment, under the flickering lights of the city they had changed, there was peace. Somewhere in the distance, a child laughed, a door closed, a generator hummed to life, and the world, just for an instant, felt fixed. The story of Victoria and Jerome reminds us that redemption is not found in power, but in compassion. True strength is the courage to start over when the world has already judged you, and true justice comes not from revenge, but from rebuilding what was broken. Love, when born from respect and equality, can bridge even the deepest divides of class, race, and fear. In the end, what defines us isn't what we lose, but what we choose to create from the ruins.